Ah, don't leave me alone in here, please. The scream was lost in the roar of the storm that lashed the streets of Miami. The water fell like tears from the sky, soaking the cracked asphalt where dreams drown every day. No! Listen to me, please! Listen to me! But he was already gone. All that remained was the echo of a broken promise and the biting cold of the marble beneath her bare feet. The silence seemed to scream louder than her own shattered heart. It was the end of a story, or perhaps the beginning of something extraordinary yet to be born. The dressing room mirror reflected more than her face. It showed every invisible scar that life had carved into her soul. Isabella Bella Rojas, 20 years old, ran her trembling fingers over her damp cheeks, tasting the salt of tears she couldn't hold back. Her soft green eyes, a legacy from a Spanish grandmother she never knew, shone with a mixture of pain and determination that only strong women possess. Her black skin glowed under the harsh lights of the small nightclub, El Corazon Roto, where every night she took the stage to sing for an audience that saw her but didn't truly listen. She was beautiful, with curves that spoke of femininity and strength, but in the complex racial landscape of Miami, being an Afro-Latina meant facing gazes that cut deeper than any knife. "Damn, black girl, what do you think you're doing singing our music?" She had heard that night from a table in the back. "Damn, hot morena, but she should go back to her country," shouted another, provoking laughter that pierced her chest like thorns. Bella had finished her set with her head held high, but once alone in the dressing room, the weight of the humiliation crushed her. It wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. In a city where colorism dictated a person's worth, she fought every day to prove that her talent was worth more than the color of her skin. Her phone buzzed with a text from her landlord. "If you don't pay by tomorrow, you're on the street." Bella looked at her savings. $50. Not even enough for a fraction of the rent. Her day job at a hair salon and her nightly gigs barely kept her afloat. She took off the cheap gold dress she had bought at a thrift store, revealing a body that bore the marks of a daily struggle, hands calloused from work, but a posture that never stooped. Her long, firm legs spoke of the hours spent walking the city, searching for opportunities that always seemed just out of reach. "Bella, you okay?" The voice of Mama Rosa, the club's owner, filtered through the door. "I'm fine, Mama Rosa. I'll be right out." "Come on, Misha. Don't listen to those idiots. You have a beautiful voice, you hear me? Don't let them bring you down." Bella smiled bitterly. The encouraging words felt like bandages on an open wound. She quickly changed into her faded jeans and a white blouse she had washed so many times she no longer remembered its original color. She grabbed her guitar, her most prized possession, and stepped out into the club's back alley. The Miami dawn greeted her with its humid, cool embrace. The downtown streets were empty, lit only by the neon signs of bars still clinging to the night. Bella walked slowly toward the bus that would take her to her tiny room in a rundown part of Little Haiti, a neighborhood where poverty and dignity coexisted on every corner. On the bus, she sat by the window and watched her ghostly reflection in the glass. At 20, she had already experienced more rejection than anyone should endure in a lifetime. She had come to Miami from a rough neighborhood in the Bronx at 17, fleeing an abusive stepfather and a mother who had chosen to silence her pain. Her dream was simple but seemed unattainable, to be recognized as a singer not out of pity or exoticism, but for the fire she carried in her voice. She had grown up listening to Lauryn Hill, Selena, and Celia Cruz, women who had conquered hearts with their art, but the path to that recognition was full of thorns that dug deeper with each passing day. The bus stopped at her stop. Bella got off and walked through the cracked pavement streets of her neighborhood, where every window told a story of struggle. The stray dogs knew her and wagged their tails as she passed. The neighbors greeted her with respect because even if she had no money, her dignity was evident in every step she took. She climbed the creaking stairs of her building. Her room was small, a single bed, a dresser with a cracked mirror, a small closet, and a kitchenette with a two-burner hot plate. On the wall, she had taped magazine clippings of singers she admired, and in the corner, her guitar rested like a faithful friend. She sat on the bed and opened a worn-out notebook where she wrote her songs. The page was full of scribbles and words, fighting to find their place in the world. She wrote, "I'm the voice that no one hears, the song that no one sings, but my heart won't ever break, for I know my time is coming." Tears dripped onto the paper, smudging the ink. Bella closed the notebook and lay down, hugging her pillow as if it were the only thing keeping her sane in a world that seemed determined to destroy her. Outside, Miami slept, oblivious to her dreams. But in that small, humble room, a young woman was preparing to face another day of struggle, unaware that her life was about to change in ways she had never imagined. In a luxurious mansion on the exclusive Star Island, just 9 miles away, a 30-year-old man stood on his marble balcony, looking toward the distant lights of the city center. Mateo Cruz, known worldwide as M. Saint, had just returned from an album launch party where he had been the center of attention, yet he felt emptier than ever. His blue eyes, unusual in his black face, reflected a melancholy that contrasted with the success surrounding him. He had built a musical empire, amassed millions of dollars, and achieved international fame, but none of it filled the void that was growing in his chest like an emotional black hole. That night, something had driven him to escape his own party and drive aimlessly through the streets of Miami. He didn't know why his steps had led him downtown, nor why he had parked outside an obscure club called El Corazon Roto. Perhaps it was nostalgia for the days when he was just a kid from the projects with impossible dreams. But then he had heard her. A voice that cut through the walls like an emotional sword, a voice that carried so much authentic pain and so much irrepressible hope that it made him stop breathing. He had slipped into the club, disguised in a baseball cap and sunglasses, and had seen a stunningly beautiful young black woman singing as if her life depended on it. Bella. He didn't know her name then, but he knew he had just witnessed something extraordinary. It was like listening to his own soul sing through someone else's voice. When she finished her song and faced the racist comments from the audience with unbreakable dignity, Mateo knew he had found something he hadn't even known he was looking for. Now, in his empty mansion surrounded by luxuries that meant nothing, Mateo made a decision that would change 2 lives forever. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Alex, I need you to find information on a singer. She performs at a club called El Corazon Roto. She's young, black, has a voice. It's one of a kind." "Sure thing, boss. What do you need the info for?" Mateo looked once more toward the city center, where he knew she was sleeping in some humble place, probably fighting the same demons he had faced years ago. "Because I'm going to offer her an opportunity that could change her life." What Mateo didn't know was that in trying to save Bella, she would end up saving him in ways he could never imagine. We hope you're enjoying the story so far. If you are, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. Let us know in the comments what you think is going to happen next and what city you're watching from. We love hearing your ideas. The midday sun beat down mercilessly on the Miami streets as Bella hurried down Biscayne Boulevard, dodging street vendors and tourists strolling leisurely. Her worn-out sneakers hit the pavement with a desperate rhythm as she checked the time on her phone. 2:47 p.m. She was late for her job at the hair salon, and Mrs. Diaz did not tolerate lateness. "Damn bus," she muttered, wiping the sweat from her forehead. The previous night at the club had ended very late, and exhaustion weighed on her body like lead. Her long, strong legs carried her until she finally saw the faded sign, Marisol's Beauty Salon. "Bella, where have you been?" yelled Mrs. Diaz from inside, her voice thick with disapproval. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Diaz. The bus broke down and I had to... Save me the excuses, you... Have a client waiting. Mrs. Vanderbilt wants highlights, and she's getting impatient." Bella hurried to the small back room to put on her apron. The salon was modest. 4 worn chairs, mirrors with peeling gold frames, and the constant smell of chemicals mixed with cheap perfume. She had worked there for 2 years, washing hair, sweeping floors, and occasionally helping with simple styles. Mrs. Vanderbilt was waiting with a sour expression. She was a middle-aged woman with fair skin and a haughty attitude who frequented the salon because the prices were low, but always managed to make her supposed superiority felt. "Is this girl going to attend to me?" Mrs. Vanderbilt asked loudly, addressing Mrs. Diaz as if Bella were invisible. "Bella is a good worker, Mrs. Vanderbilt. She's just going to wash your hair before the treatment." Mrs. Vanderbilt sighed dramatically. "I hope her hands are clean. I wouldn't want to catch anything strange." Bella felt the familiar dagger of racism pierce her chest, but she maintained her composure. She had learned to swallow humiliation like a bitter but necessary medicine. She approached the sink and began to work with firm, careful hands that had learned to be gentle even when her heart screamed in pain. "Softer, girl. My hair isn't steel wool like yours," Mrs. Vanderbilt snapped. This time, Bella couldn't hold back. She stopped her hands and looked directly into the woman's eyes in the mirror. "Ma'am, my hair is not steel wool. It's curly, natural and beautiful, just like me, and my hands are cleaner than many consciences I've met," she said in a firm but controlled voice. The salon fell silent. The other clients turned to watch the scene, and Mrs. Diaz approached with a worried look. "Bella. No, Mrs. Diaz, I will no longer allow myself to be disrespected for the color of my skin. I am a hard-working, honest and talented woman. If anyone has a problem with that, they can find another place to be." Served. Mrs. Vanderbilt stood up indignantly, her hair still full of shampoo. "This is an outrage. I have never seen such insolence." "The insolence is believing you can trample on someone's dignity just because you're paying for a service," Bella retorted, taking off her apron. "My job doesn't include being your emotional punching bag." "Wait!" yelled Mrs. Diaz, but Bella had already grabbed her purse and was heading for the door. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mrs. Diaz, but some jobs cost more than a person can afford to pay." She left the salon with her head held high, but once on the street, reality hit her like a slap. She had just lost her day job, and without that income, she couldn't pay the rent. Her courage had come at a very high price. She walked aimlessly through downtown Miami, feeling the weight of her decision settle on her shoulders. The sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that contrasted with the storm brewing inside. She stopped in front of the Freedom Tower, watching tourists take pictures and couples kiss under the colonial-style arcades. Everyone seemed to have a place in the world, except her. It was as if she were a ghost, visible but unrecognized, present but not valued. That's when her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Isabella Rojas? This is Golden Gate Records, an independent label. We heard you sing at El Corazon Roto and we'd like to meet you. Could you come to our offices tomorrow at 3 o'clock? Bella felt her heart race. "Is this for real?" "Completely. We have a proposal that might interest you. The address is 1476 Brickell Avenue, 12th floor." After hanging up, Bella stood frozen in the middle of the plaza, feeling as though destiny were playing an incomprehensible game with her. On the same day she had lost a job for defending her dignity, life was offering her an opportunity that could change everything. That night, in her small room, Bella couldn't sleep. She stood before the cracked mirror, observing her reflection. Her green eyes shone with a mixture of hope and terror. Her black skin glowed under the lamplight, and for the first time in a long time, she saw herself as truly beautiful. "Tomorrow could be the first day of the rest of my life," she whispered to herself. But what she didn't know was that in a mansion in the exclusive enclave of Star Island, a man was looking out his office window, thinking about a song he had heard that very night in a small downtown club, a voice that had touched something deep in his millionaire soul, reminding him of who he had been before fame turned him into someone unrecognizable. Mateo Cruz had just made a decision that would change two lives forever. The offices of Golden Gate Records occupied the entire 12th floor of a glass skyscraper in Miami's financial district. Bella had never been so high up in a building. From the windows, she could see the entire city spread out, like a living map. Her palms were sweating as she waited in the reception area, dressed in her best outfit. A pristine white blouse, dark jeans without any rips, and the only decent sneakers she owned. The receptionist, a young, fair-skinned woman with a dismissive attitude, had looked her up and down when she arrived. With that expression Bella knew all too well. Surprise mixed with suspicion. "Are you sure you have an appointment?" she had asked for the third time. "Yes, at 3. With Mr. Davis," Bella replied, maintaining the patience she had learned to cultivate as armor. When they finally let her in, Bella found herself in a conference room with enormous windows and a glass table that reflected the city lights. 3 men were waiting for her, 2 of them in expensive suits, and the third one took her breath away. Mateo Cruz was leaning against the window, observing the city. He was a 30-year-old black man, tall and athletically built, with the confidence that only success can bestow. His dark skin glowed with the health of someone who could afford the best care, and when he turned to look at her, his blue eyes struck her like a lightning bolt. Blue eyes in a black face. It was such an unusual combination that Bella felt time stand still. Mateo wore a fitted black shirt that highlighted his toned physique, designer jeans, and sneakers that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. "Isabella Rojas," he said, his deep voice having the power to fill stadiums. "I'm Mateo Cruz, but people know me as M. Saint." Bella almost fainted. M. Saint was the most successful rapper in the country, with international collaborations and billions of streams on every platform. His songs played on every radio station. His videos had astronomical views, and his personal story was legendary. A young black man from Miami who had conquered the world of rap against all odds. I know who you are," Bella stammered, feeling her cheeks flush. "Please have a seat," said one of the executives, Mr. Davis. "We called you because Mateo heard you sing last night at El Corazon Roto and was very impressed." Mateo approached the table, and Bella could smell his expensive cologne mixed with something more masculine and natural. When he sat across from her, his blue eyes studied her with an intensity that made her feel as if he could see right into her soul. "You have something special," Mateo said, his voice calm but filled with conviction. "Not just technique, which you have, it's something deeper. Real pain turned into true art." "Thank you," Bella murmured, not knowing what else to say. "We want to offer you a contract as a backup vocalist for Mateo's new tour," Mr. Davis explained. "It would be 6 months touring the United States. The pay is $10,000 a month, plus all expenses covered." Bella felt the floor shift beneath her feet. It was more than 10 times what she earned from both her jobs combined. "Why me?" she asked, needing to understand. Mateo leaned forward, and for a moment the mask of the successful rapper cracked, showing something more vulnerable. "Because when you sing, you're not faking it. In this industry, everyone fakes it. They fake pain they haven't felt, they fake struggles they've never lived. But you sing with real scars. We need an answer today." The other executive interjected. "The tour starts in 2 weeks. Bella looked out the window, seeing the city that had rejected her so many times spread out at her feet. It was as if she was standing on the edge of a cliff with the choice to either fly or fall. "Can I ask a question?" she finally said. Mateo nodded. "Why did you really choose me?" You don't know me. You don't know if I'm reliable, if I can handle the pressure." Matteo smiled, and for the first time, Bella saw something genuine in his expression. "Because last night when you finished singing and that idiot yelled, 'That racist crap,' you didn't bow your head. You stood there with your dignity intact, as if his ignorance couldn't touch you. You can't teach that. That comes from the soul." Bella felt tears welling up. It was the first time someone had seen her strength as something valuable, not as something that needed to be broken. "What if I'm not good enough?" "You're already good enough," Matteo replied. "The question is whether you're ready to be good enough on a massive scale." Bella thought of her room in Little Haiti, the rent she couldn't pay, the years of rejection and humiliation. But she also thought of her dreams, tucked away like secret treasures in her songbook. "I accept," she said, her voice coming out stronger than she expected. Mr. Davis smiled and slid some papers across the table. "Sign here, and here, and here." As Bella signed, she felt Matteo's gaze on her. When she looked up, he was watching her with an unreadable expression. "See you tomorrow for rehearsals," he said, standing up. "And Bella?" "Yes, welcome to the show." After everyone had left, Bella remained alone in the conference room for a few minutes, watching her reflection in the glass table. The woman she saw was the same one who had left her small apartment that morning, but something fundamental had changed. She was no longer just a dreamer. She was a woman with a real opportunity to change her life. That night, as she packed her few belongings, Bella couldn't stop thinking about Matteo's blue eyes. There was something in his gaze that told her this story was just beginning, and that the man behind the famous rapper held secrets that could change everything she thought she knew about love, success, and the price of dreams come true. "Wow, things are moving fast. What do you think of Matteo's offer? Is it too good to be true? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and tell us which city you're tuning in from. Your suggestions for future stories are always welcome. The Golden Sound recording studios looked like a spaceship in the middle of Miami. Bella had never seen so much technology in one place. Consoles with hundreds of buttons, giant monitors, and soundproof booths that looked like futuristic capsules. She had arrived early, nervous but determined, dressed in the athletic wear she had been told to wear. Matteo was already there, but he was a different Matteo from the day before. Gone were the sleek shirt and designer jeans. He wore black sweatpants and a grey t-shirt that clung to his muscular torso. He was sweating, clearly having been doing vocal warm-ups, and his blue eyes shone with an intensity Bella hadn't seen before. "Good morning," she said, trying to sound professional. "Morning, Bella. Ready to get to work?" The next 5 hours were the most intense of Bella's life. Matteo was a relentless perfectionist, but also a natural teacher. He made her repeat the same lines, over and over, not out of cruelty, but because he could hear the potential in her voice that she herself didn't know she had. "Your range is wider than you think," he told her as he adjusted the microphone. "Don't be afraid to go lower. Your voice has power down there." "There, that's better," he murmured when she finally hit the perfect note. "Now you feel the difference, don't you?" Bella nodded, surprised at how her own voice sounded through the professional headphones. It was rich, powerful, with nuances she had never explored. During a break while they shared water and energy bars, Matteo relaxed a bit from his producer role. "How did you get into singing?" he asked, sitting on the studio floor. Bella sat at a safe distance, still intimidated by being so close to someone so famous. "My abuela had an old radio. We'd listen to traditional Puerto Rican music, but also jazz, boleros, everything. She used to tell me that music was the language of the soul, that when words failed, songs would speak for us." "Where is she now?" "She passed away when I was 15. A year later, my mum got together with a man who thought women were for cooking and other things. When he tried to put his hands on me, I left for Miami." Matteo stopped drinking and looked at her directly. You came to Miami alone at 17? Yeah, with $20 and a backpack with 3 changes of clothes. Damn, Mateo murmured. You're stronger than I thought. What about you? How did you get here? Bella asked, gesturing to the luxurious studio. Mateo's expression changed, growing darker. You really want to know? Bella nodded. I grew up in a project that doesn't even exist anymore. They tore it down to build a shopping mall. My dad left us when I was 8. My mom worked 3 jobs to support me and my little sister. I sold candy at traffic lights after school. How did you discover rap? By accident. One day, when I was 12, I saw some older kids freestyling in a park. I just listened, and when they left, I tried it myself. I found out I could turn all my anger into words that rhymed. Mateo got up and walked to the studio window, which offered a panoramic view of the city. When I was 18, I uploaded a video to YouTube. I recorded it on my mom's phone in my bedroom. In 3 days, it had 1 million views. That must have been incredible. Yes and no. Mateo turned to her. Success changes you, Bella. It gives you things you never imagined having, but it also takes things you didn't know were important. Like what? Privacy. The ability to make mistakes without the whole world watching. The ability to trust people without wondering if they're with you for who you are or what you have. Bella moved a little closer. Are you lonely? Mateo laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. I'm surrounded by people all the time, managers, assistants, producers, fans, but yeah, I'm lonely most of the time. Why are you telling me this? Mateo looked at her with those blue eyes that seemed to see through lies. Because when I heard you sing for the first time in years, I didn't feel lonely. Your voice reached a place that nothing else could reach anymore. The silence stretched between them, charged with something neither of them dared to name. Bella felt her heart race, but also a voice in her head telling her to be careful. Powerful men like Mateo lived in a different world, with different rules. Bella, Mateo said, taking a step closer. There's something else you need to know about this tour. What is it? It's going to be hard. Not just the work, but what you're going to face. There will be people who say you're here for other reasons, not for your talent. There will be reporters trying to invent scandals. And there will be times when you'll want to quit. Are you trying to scare me? I'm preparing you. Because once you step on that stage with me, there's no going back. Your private life ceases to exist. Bella thought of her room in Little Haiti, the nights singing for drunks who didn't respect her, the years of struggling for pennies while her dreams slowly faded. I don't have a private life to protect anymore, she said finally. And if the price of chasing my dreams is that people talk, let them talk. I'm used to it. Mateo smiled, and this time it was a real, warm smile. That's why I chose your tea. He moved closer, until Bella could feel the warmth of his body and the scent of his skin mixed with expensive deodorant. For a moment, she thought he was going to kiss her, and she didn't know if she wanted him to or feared he would. But Mateo just extended his hand. Partners. Bella took his hand, feeling the strength in his fingers and the softness of skin that had never known manual labor. Partners. As they rehearsed for the rest of the day, something had changed between them. It was no longer just the famous rapper and the rookie backup singer. They were 2 people who had shared their wounds and were beginning to build something that neither of them could yet define. The tour had begun like a dream come true. For 3 weeks, Bella had traveled across the country in a luxury tour bus, stayed in 5-star hotels, and sung before thousands of people who chanted every word of Mateo's songs. Her voice had found its perfect place among the powerful beats and deep lyrics of his rap, creating a fusion that set audiences on fire. But that night in Atlanta, something had gone wrong. Bella was in her hotel room, still shaking from what had happened at the meet and greet after the concert. A fan had yelled from the crowd, That black girl is just there to warm Saint's bed. The cruel laughter that followed had cut deeper than any blade. Matteo had reacted immediately, stopping everything to defend her honor publicly, but the damage was done. Videos of the incident were already circulating on social media, and the comments were a battlefield between those who defended her and those who repeated the same racist and misogynistic accusations. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Matteo, with 2 cups of hot tea and an expression that mixed fury and tenderness. "How are you?" he asked, sitting beside her on the sweet sofa. "Fine," Bella lied, taking the cup with hands that still trembled slightly. "Don't lie to me. I know you better than that." It was true. In 3 weeks of constant proximity, Matteo had learned to read her moods like an open book. He knew she bit her lower lip when she was nervous, hummed softly when she was happy, and that her green eyes darkened when something hurt her deeply. "It hurts," she finally admitted. "No matter how many times it happens, it always hurts to have everything I am, all my talent, reduced to the color of my skin and theories about my sex life." Matteo set down his cup and moved closer to her. "Bella, look at me." When she looked up, she saw something in his blue eyes she hadn't seen before. Complete vulnerability. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I've been holding back because I was afraid it would change how you see me." "What is it?" Matteo took a deep breath, as if about to jump off a cliff. "The reason I have these blue eyes isn't common genetics. My biological father isn't who I thought he was." Bella frowned, not understanding where this was going. "My mother used to clean houses on Fisher Island when she was young. One of those houses belonged to the Montoya family, who owned several companies in Miami. The eldest son, Victor Montoya, was 25, married, and Matteo. And he raped my mother. She was 17, vulnerable, and he had all the power. When she got pregnant, they fired her immediately. They told her if she ever spoke up, they would destroy her." Bella felt the Ashtae's air leave her lungs. "So that's why you have the blue eyes?" "Yes. It's the only physical trait I inherited from that bastard." Matteo ran a hand over his face. "My mom never told me. I found out 2 years ago when she was dying of cancer. In her last days, on morphine, she started to ramble and talk about the past." "Does he know you exist?" "Not officially, but I suspect he does. A year ago, his lawyers approached my legal team with a very strange offer. $10 million for me to leave the US and never come back." Bella fell silent, processing the information. Suddenly, so many things about Matteo made sense. His obsession with control, his distrust of people, his constant need to prove his worth. "Why are you telling me this now?" Matteo took her hands, and Bella could feel them trembling slightly. "Because after what happened today, I realized I can't keep pretending that this thing between us is just business." "Matteo." "No, let me finish. I'm telling you this because I want you to know who I really am. Not the successful rapper, not the millionaire, not the public image. I'm the son of a rape survivor, a bastard who grew up poor and has spent his entire adult life trying to prove he's worth something." Tears began to roll down Bella's cheeks. "You are worth everything, Matteo. Your success, your talent, your heart, all of that is yours, not his. Do you really believe that?" "I know it." Matteo moved closer until their foreheads touched. "Bella, I'm falling in love with you. I have no right. We're from different worlds, and my life is a mess, but—" Bella silenced him by placing a finger on his lips. "Your life isn't a mess. It's complicated, but it's not a mess. And as for different worlds—" She leaned in until their lips were inches apart. "We both come from the same world, Matteo. The world of people who have had to fight for everything they have, who have been judged for things they can't control, who have turned their pain into art." When they finally kissed, it was as if the universe had been waiting for that moment. Their lips met with a mixture of desperation and tenderness, of restrained passion and shared vulnerability. Matteo tasted of mint and unspoken promises, and Bella felt as if all the pieces of her life had finally clicked into place. When they broke apart, they both knew they had crossed a line that would change everything. "What are we going to do?" Bella whispered. "I don't know." Matteo admitted, "But we're going to figure it out together." That night, as they fell asleep in each other's arms on the hotel suite's sofa, neither of them knew that 600 miles away in Miami, Victor Montoya was watching videos of the concert on his computer, recognizing for the first time the blue eyes staring back from the screen and making a decision that would jeopardize everything Matteo and Bella were building together. Love had arrived, but with it came the storms that would test whether what they felt was strong enough to survive the truth, the power, and the secrets that had defined their lives. The scandal erupted on a Tuesday morning like a bomb that destroys everything in its path. Bella woke up in their New York City hotel room to Matteo's phone ringing incessantly. They had been officially together for only 2 weeks. 2 weeks of discovering that love could be so deep it hurt, and so beautiful it was terrifying. The night before, they had made love for the first time. It hadn't been just sex. It had been a communion of souls that had been searching for each other their whole lives without knowing it. Matteo had been incredibly tender, constantly asking if she was okay, kissing every emotional scar the cruel world had left on her skin. Bella had discovered that making love to someone who truly sees you, who loves you for who you are and not despite it, was a transformative act that healed wounds she didn't even know she had. Now, as she watched Matteo answer the phone with an expression that went from sleepy to confused to pure horror, she knew their bubble of happiness was about to burst. "What did you say?" Matteo yelled into the phone. "Say that again!" Bella moved closer and saw Matteo's hands shaking as he held the device. He was only wearing boxers and a t-shirt, his hair tousled from the night of love they had shared, and the transformation from bliss to absolute horror on his face broke her heart. "Turn on the TV, he told Bella, covering the phone's microphone. Channel 4. The screen filled with the immaculate face of a news anchor speaking with the solemnity reserved for national tragedies. In an unprecedented press conference, Victor Montoya, president of Florida's most powerful business consortium, has revealed information that could forever change the image of rapper M. Saint. Bella's heart stopped as the footage appeared. Victor Montoya, a man in his late 50s with blue eyes, identical to Matteo's, stood at a podium surrounded by reporters. He was handsome for his age, with perfectly coiffed grey hair, a designer suit, and the confidence that only generational wealth provides. But when Bella looked into his eyes, she saw something cold, calculating, and dangerous. 30 years ago, I made a mistake I deeply regret. A housekeeper in my home became pregnant, and out of cowardice and to preserve my marriage, I did not take responsibility. That child grew up to become the artist known as M. Saint. Son of a bitch! Matteo roared, throwing the phone against the wall where it shattered. Bella had never seen Matteo so enraged. His entire body trembled with fury, and for a moment she was afraid to approach him. He was like a wounded, dangerous animal. On the television, Victor Montoya continued, with tears that seemed calculated to the millimeter. His performance was perfect, the powerful businessman showing human vulnerability, the absent father seeking redemption. Now that my son has achieved success, I want to amend my mistakes. I offer him my name, my inheritance, and the fatherly love I should have given him from the beginning. Liar! Matteo screamed at the television. Rapist! Liar! The anchor returned to the screen. Montoya also revealed that he has been secretly funding several of M. Saint's charitable projects and is prepared to make public a donation of $3 million to organizations that help single mothers as a way to atone for his past behavior. Bella felt sick. It was a public relations masterstroke. Victor Montoya had not only revealed Mateo's secret, but had positioned himself as the repentant father seeking redemption, robbing Mateo of the chance to tell his own story. Worse, he was lying about having financially supported Mateo, creating a narrative where he had been the secret benefactor for years. "Turn it off," Mateo muttered, collapsing onto the sofa as if his soul had been ripped out. Bella turned off the TV and sat beside him, but when she tried to touch him, he recoiled. "Don't," he said in a voice she didn't recognize. "Don't touch me right now. If you touch me now, I'll completely fall apart." "Mateo, it's okay to fall apart. I'm here to—" "Do you know what just happened?" he asked in that unfamiliar voice. "Do you understand the magnitude of what that bastard just did?" Mateo stood up and began to pace the room like a caged lion. His body, which the night before had been a haven of passion for Bella, now radiated a violent energy that was frightening. "He stole my truth. For 30 years that bastard let my mother suffer in silence, let me grow up thinking I was a fatherless bastard. And now, when he can't hurt me directly anymore, he uses my own story to make himself look like the repentant hero." Bella's phone began to ring. It was her temporary manager. "Don't answer," Mateo said. "They'll want statements. They'll want us to take sides. They'll turn this into a media circus." But the phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing. By 9 in the morning, the hotel phone had rung 30 times. By 10, there were paparazzi in the lobby. By 11, social media was exploding with conspiracy theories, cruel memes, and heated debates about the truth behind the story. The comments were a war zone. Some supported Mateo. M. Saint is the victim of a rapist who now wants to buy his forgiveness with PR stunts. Others bought Victor's narrative. How beautiful that her father wants to acknowledge his successful son. M. Saint should be grateful. But the cruelest comments were aimed at Bella. Her photo had been ripped from tour videos, and people speculated mercilessly. "That black girl is just in it for the money. I bet she's already calculating how much she'll inherit. Women like her always look for rich men to solve their problems." Mateo read some comments on his laptop and grew even angrier. "They're coming after you too. They're using our love as ammunition to hurt us." By noon, the paparazzi were swarming the hotel lobby. TikTok videos speculated about Mateo and Bella's relationship. Morning radio shows debated whether Mateo should accept the Montoya inheritance. The brands that had endorsement deals with him began calling his representatives, nervous about the controversy. But the worst was yet to come. At 3 in the afternoon, the room phone rang. It was the front desk. "Mr. Cruz, there's a woman here who says she's a relative. Catherine Montoya." Mateo paled. His dark skin turned ashen, and Bella saw him grip the edge of a table to steady himself. "It's Victor's wife," he whispered to Bella. "The woman he was married to all those years, including when he raped my mother. Tell them to send her up." "Are you sure?" "I need to see her. I need to look her in the eyes and ask if she knew what her husband was doing." Bella had never seen a woman as elegantly cold as Catherine. She was in her 60s but looked 45, with a face tightened by perfect plastic surgery and an attitude that screamed old money and consolidated power. She wore a cream-colored Chanel suit that likely cost more than most people's annual salary, Louboutin heels that gleamed like mirrors, and jewelry that could have fed a family for years. But what struck Bella most was her presence. Catherine Montoya radiated the kind of confidence that comes only from generations of privilege, from knowing the world is designed to benefit her, from never having faced a real consequence for her actions. "Mateo," she said without emotion, as if greeting a casual acquaintance. "Or should I call you M. Saint, if you prefer?" Her voice was cultured, with an accent that screamed private education and international travel. She looked at Mateo as if he were a curiosity, interesting but not particularly important. "What do you want?" Matteo asked bluntly. Catherine glanced at Bella with thinly veiled disdain. Her gaze swept over Bella's body from head to toe, and Bella could see the contempt in her eyes. It was a look she knew well, the way the rich looked at the poor, the way some white people looked at black people, the way decent people looked at those they considered inferior. "Could you leave us alone? Family matters are private." Her tone was the one she would use to ask a servant to leave. Bella felt the familiar humiliation rise in her throat, but before she could respond, Matteo spoke. "She stays." Matteo replied with a firmness that left no room for argument. "Whatever you have to say, she can hear. She's my woman, and I have no secrets from her." The term "my woman" made Catherine raise a perfectly waxed eyebrow, as if the idea were absurd. Catherine sighed, as if Matteo's behavior were a minor inconvenience she had to tolerate. "Very well. I've come to make you an offer that I believe you'll find interesting." She sat, uninvited, on the most expensive sofa in the suite, crossed her legs with studied elegance, and pulled a leather portfolio from her designer handbag. Everything about her screamed money, power, and the absolute certainty that she could buy whatever she wanted. "My husband may be a sentimentalist, but I am a pragmatist. I know exactly what kind of man you are, what kind of person your girlfriend is, and what you really want." "Be careful what you say," Matteo warned, and there was something dangerous in his voice. Catherine smiled, and it was a cruel smile that didn't reach her eyes. $30 million, an immediate wire transfer to any account you choose. In return, you disappear. You leave the country, you change your stage name, and you never again claim any family ties to us. The silence in the room was deafening. Bella felt as if she had been slapped physically and emotionally. "Are you trying to buy Matteo?" she asked, her voice trembling with indignation. Catherine looked at her, as if just noticing her presence, as if an insect had suddenly spoken. "Girl, understand reality. My family has built an empire over generations. We have businesses in 5 countries, properties worth more than your little brain can comprehend, and a reputation to protect. We will not allow the bastard product of a rape to come and claim what is not his." "She was a child!" Matteo shouted, standing up so quickly that Catherine flinched for the first time. "Your husband raped a 17-year-old child, a maid who got in over her head." Catherine replied unflinchingly, regaining her composure. "These things happen in all wealthy families, dear. Men have needs, young maids are available, but the consequences don't have to last forever." Bella stood up too, feeling all the rage from years of racism and classism concentrate in her chest like burning lava. "Ma'am, I don't know what world you live in, but in the real world, you and your husband are the criminals here." "Excuse me?" Catherine looked at her as if she were a particularly repulsive insect. "A little black thing from the ghetto is going to give me a lecture on morality." The words dripped from her mouth like poison, loaded with all the contempt she had cultivated over decades of racial and economic privilege. "A dignified woman is telling you that your money can't buy the truth," Bella replied, stepping toward Catherine, unintimidated by her aura of power. "You can have all the money in the world, all the designer suits, all the plastic surgeries you want, but you can't buy Matteo's talent, you can't buy his integrity, and you definitely can't buy our love." Catherine laughed, a crystalline, cruel sound that filled the room like shattering glass. "Love. Darling, when the novelty wears off and he gets tired of playing savior with the poor, needy black girl, what do you think will happen? Men like him don't end up with women like you. He might be infatuated with you now, but when he has to choose between real money and his temporary feelings, you know which one he'll pick." Matteo stepped between the two women, and Bella could see he was struggling not to lose control completely. "Ma'am, you have 10 seconds to get out of here before I call security and have you forcibly removed." The offer will be on the table for 48 hours, Catherine said, standing and smoothing her suit with calculated movements. After that, things will get much more difficult for both of you. And when I say difficult, I mean we will destroy his career. We will sink any project he's involved in, and we will make sure no one in this industry ever works with him again. She walked to the door, but stopped and turned to Bella. And as for you, Princess, when he leaves you for someone more appropriate for his new social standing, remember that you had the chance to walk away with dignity and cash in your pocket. When she was gone, Matteo and Bella stood in silence for several minutes that felt like hours. The hotel room, which that morning had been their love nest, now felt contaminated by Catherine Montoya's cruelty and racism. "Are you going to take it?" Bella finally asked, her voice holding a vulnerability that was heartbreaking. Despite all her strength, despite all the battles she had won against racism and classism, a part of her feared Matteo would choose the money. It was an astronomical sum, enough to set anyone up for life. And she had seen how money changed people, how it corrupted them, how it made them betray even those they loved most. Matteo took her in his arms and looked directly into her eyes. His blue eyes, which had been a source of pain because of their resemblance to his rapist father, now shone with a steely determination. "Bella, listen to me carefully. They could offer me $1 billion. They could threaten to destroy my career. They could try to separate us in any way. And my answer would still be the same. No. But your career... I built my career myself, with my talent and my work. I came from nothing, Bella. If I lose it all tomorrow, I know how to build it back up. I've been poor before. I can be poor again. But what I can't do is live without you, without my dignity, without my soul." Matteo walked to the hotel window, which overlooked the panoramic view of New York City. "And if I lose my career defending my dignity and our love, then I've lost it for something worthwhile." They kissed with the desperation of two people who know the storm has just begun, but have decided to face it together. The kiss tasted of tears and promises, of war and love, of everything they were willing to risk to be together. That night, while the entire country debated the story of M. Saint and the Montoyas, while newspapers printed special editions and TV shows hosted heated debates, Matteo picked up his guitar and composed a song that would be released the next day without warning, without promotion, just his voice and his truth. 30 years I waited to know your name. 30 years my mother carried your shame. Now you want to buy my forgiveness with gold. But some things can never be bought or sold. My love is not for sale, my dignity has no price, and my woman is worth more than your whole empire of lies. The video, shot in the hotel room with Bella singing backup, went viral in 6 hours. Matteo appeared without makeup, without production, just him and his guitar, telling his side of the story. He spoke of his mother's rape, of 30 years of lies, of a powerful man who now wanted to buy the forgiveness he didn't deserve. Bella appeared in the video not as a backup vocalist, but as the woman he loved, singing with a voice that trembled with emotion but never lost its strength. Together, they created something more powerful than any PR campaign. They created pure, unadulterated truth. America chose a side. Social media was flooded with messages of support. Money can't buy true love. Bella and Matteo show us what it means to fight for dignity. To hell with the Montoyas and their dirty money. But Catherine Montoya had been serious about the consequences. The next day, 3 major brands cancelled their endorsement deals with Matteo. 2 record labels withdrew collaboration offers. A music festival he was scheduled to headline indefinitely postponed his performance. The war had begun, but for the first time in his life, Matteo Cruz knew what it meant to fight for something more important than success. He was fighting for true love. And Isabella Rojas knew what it meant to have someone willing to lose everything for her, Together, they were going to prove that authentic love could conquer even the cruelest power, but the price was going to be higher than either of them imagined. The 6 months that followed were the most difficult and, paradoxically, the most transformative of Matteo and Bella's lives. The war, declared by the Montoya family, was relentless and systematic. Contracts were cancelled, doors were closed, and the machine of destruction that money and power can buy was set in motion. But something extraordinary happened in the process. When Matteo lost the support of major record labels, independent musicians embraced him. When luxury brands shut their doors to him, local American brands sought him out. When the mainstream media tried to silence him, social media amplified his voice. The love story between the successful rapper and the young singer who had defended her dignity against a corrupt system struck a deep chord in American society. It was a story that spoke of resistance, of authenticity, of choosing love over money. Matteo sold his mansion on Star Island and donated half the money to organizations that helped survivors of sexual abuse. With the other half, he bought a modest but beautiful house in Coconut Grove, a historic Miami neighborhood near where Bella had first grown as an artist. It was a restored colonial-style house with courtyards full of plants that Bella tended to personally. A home recording studio where they created music without commercial pressures, and a large kitchen where they cooked together every night. "You know what?" Matteo said one afternoon, helping Bella water the plants in the courtyard. "I've never been this happy." "Even after losing millions?" she asked with a mischievous smile. "Especially because I lost millions. Now I know who my real friends are. I know what truly matters, and I know I can be happy with very little, as long as I have you with me." Bella moved closer and kissed him softly. "I love you, Matteo Cruz. Not the famous M. Saint, not the millionaire, but you, the man who chose love over everything else." Their nights were different now. Instead of exclusive parties and gala events, they spent them creating music together, walking through the city hand in hand, discovering that everyday love was just as thrilling as epic love. Matteo had learned to live with less money but more happiness. He drove a simple car, bought clothes from local shops, and discovered the pleasure of walking through the city without bodyguards. For the first time in years, he felt free to be himself, without performances, without masks, without the constant pressure of maintaining a public image. Bella had blossomed in ways she had never imagined. She no longer worked in hair salons or sang in clubs for loose change. She had released her own independent EP, Roots and Wings, which was critically acclaimed and loved by the public. Her songs spoke of overcoming adversity, of self-love, of the beauty of blackness, of the strength found in vulnerability. But the most profound change in both of them was not professional but personal. They had learned to love each other without fear, without conditions, without the defenses they had built over years of pain. Matteo had healed the wound of not knowing his father by finding a chosen family in Bella. Bella had healed the wound of social rejection by finding in Matteo someone who saw her as the work of art she was. "There's something I want to talk to you about," Matteo said one night after they finished recording a new song together. Bella put her guitar aside and sat beside him in the studio. "What is it?" Matteo pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. When he opened it, it revealed a simple but beautiful ring with an emerald that shone like Bella's eyes. "Isabella Rojas, will you marry me?" For a moment, she was speechless. Then she started crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes," she finally said. 1,000 times yes. "It's not an expensive ring," Matteo said, sliding it onto her finger. "I can't afford huge diamonds anymore, but—" "It's perfect," Bella interrupted him. "It's perfect because it comes from you, because it represents our real love, not our wealth." They kissed with the passion of always, but now also with the promise of a future built together. The turning point in the war against the Montoyas came from where they least expected it, from the very power they thought was invincible. 3 months after Matteo proposed, an investigative journalist named Jasmine Reed published a devastating series of articles about the Montoya family. The investigation, which had begun after the public scandal between Matteo and Victor, revealed a pattern of abuse and corruption that spanned decades. Victor Montoya hadn't only raped Matteo's mother, 6 more women dared to speak out, all former domestic workers, all young when they were assaulted, all silenced for years by fear and shame. The Shaka Montoya 2 movement exploded on social media with testimonies from workers who had suffered abuse in companies under the Montoya consortium. The scandal went international when American and European media began to investigate the labor practices of Montoya's companies in other countries. "Did you see this?" Bella said one morning, showing Matteo her phone with the news. Matteo read the articles with a mixture of sadness and satisfaction. "My mother finally has justice," he said in a low voice. "All these women can finally speak." "Are you going to sue?" "No." Matteo shook his head. "I don't want anything from him. Not money, not recognition, not revenge. I already have everything I need." Victor Montoya's fall was spectacular. He lost more than his reputation. He lost his empire. His international partners cancelled contracts, the IRS opened investigations for tax evasion, and his wife Catherine filed for divorce when the scandals became too toxic for her social image. "It's funny," Bella commented as they watched the news about the Montoya's ruin. They had so much power, so much money, so much influence, and in the end, the truth was stronger than all of it. "The truth is always stronger," Matteo replied. "It might take time. It might be painful to get to, but it always triumphs." Matteo publicly rejected any inheritance or legal recognition from Victor Montoya. "I don't need his last name," he declared in an interview that became iconic. "I have the last name of the woman who gave me life, taught me values, and showed me what unconditional love means. That's the only last name that matters to me." Instead of pursuing legal revenge, Matteo established a foundation that helped survivors of sexual and labor abuse. Bella became the artistic director, organizing benefit concerts and empowerment workshops for young women. 6 months after the fall of the Montoyas, Matteo and Bella decided it was time to tell their full story to the world, not through interviews or documentaries, but in the only way they knew how, through music. The Olympia Theater in Miami was packed to the rafters on the night of the special performance. But this was no ordinary M. Saint concert. It was something completely different. Roots, an intimate, acoustic concert where Matteo Cruz had shed the persona of the millionaire rapper to become simply a man telling his story. Bella was on stage beside him, no longer as a backup vocalist, but as the co-protagonist of a love story that had moved the entire nation. In 6 months she had blossomed as an artist and as a woman. She was no longer the insecure young woman singing at El Corazon Roto for loose change. She was a woman who had found her voice, literally and metaphorically, who had learned that true love doesn't make you small, but amplifies you. Her black skin glowed under the soft theater lights. Her curly hair framed her face like a natural crown of beauty, and her green eyes reflected a confidence that came from knowing she was deeply and completely loved. She wore a simple but elegant white dress, which Matteo had chosen personally because he said it made her eyes sparkle like emeralds. "This song," Matteo said into the microphone, taking Bella's hand, "I wrote it for the woman who taught me that true success isn't measured in streams or money, but in the people you love and who love you back." His physical transformation was also remarkable. He had lost some of the superficial polish he had as a superstar, But he had gained something more valuable, authenticity. His dark skin had regained the natural glow it had lost through years of stress and artificial living. His blue eyes, which once caused him pain by reminding him of his rapist father, were now a source of strength because Bella had taught him to see them as unique, as his own. When he began to sing, his voice carried an emotion he had never shown in his more aggressive raps. He no longer sang from anger, he sang from love, from healing, from hope. You came when I no longer believed in anything, when my heart was an empty house, with your green eyes and your warrior soul. You taught me that love isn't bought, it's lived. Bella joined in on the second verse, and her voice intertwined, with Mateo's like two rivers meeting to form something more powerful. Her voice had gained nuances it didn't have before, an emotional depth that came from being loved for who she was, not in spite of who she was. I don't need golden mansions or cars that shine like stars. My wealth is in your arms, my success in your beautiful smile. In the audience, there were faces of all ages and colors, people who had followed their story from the initial scandal, who had seen them defend each other in interviews, who had watched them face racist and classist attacks together, who had seen them prove that true love knows no social barriers. In the crowd were Mama Rosa, the owner of the club where Bella had first sung, some neighbors from her old building in Little Haiti, independent musicians who had collaborated with Mateo in his new phase, and hundreds of people who simply believed in the power of authentic love. The most emotional moment of the night came when Mateo addressed the audience directly. A year ago, I was a lost man who confused success with happiness. I had everything I thought I wanted, but I was missing the one thing that really matters, someone who truly saw me, not my public image, not my bank account, but my soul. His voice broke slightly, and Bella squeezed his hand to give him strength. Bella taught me that true power isn't in dominating others, but in lifting up the one you love. It's not in accumulating wealth, but in creating emotional wealth. It's not in being famous, but in being authentic. The audience was completely silent, hanging on his every word. In the front row, an older woman was crying silently. It was Rosa, one of the women who had testified against Victor Montoya, who had found the courage to speak out after seeing how Mateo had publicly defended his mother's memory. Bella took the microphone. Her voice was firm, filled with the wisdom she had gained through pain and perseverance. To all the women who are here, to all those watching us, I want to say something. Never let anyone tell you that you don't deserve love because of your skin color, your social background, your past, or anything else that others consider a flaw. I came to this city with $20 and a dream. I faced racism, classism, and moments when I wanted to give up. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her voice did not waver. But I learned that our dignity is not for sale, that our worth is not determined by others, and that true love sees beauty where others see different. If I could make it this far, if a black girl from the Bronx could find the love of her life and achieve her dreams, anyone can. In the audience, a young woman, no more than 18, clearly pregnant and with eyes swollen from crying, stood up and began to applaud. Little by little, the entire theater rose to its feet. The ovation lasted for nearly 5 minutes, and it wasn't just for the music. It was for hope, for the living proof that love can overcome any obstacle. During the ovation, Mateo and Bella looked at each other and communicated without words. The time had come for the announcement they had been saving as a surprise. When the applause finally subsided, Mateo smiled with a happiness that lit up the entire theater. And since we're sharing truths, Bella and I have something else to tell you. Bella blushed, but her smile was radiant. 3 days ago, we confirmed that we're going to be parents. The theater erupted. Again, shouts of joy, applause, whistles, tears of happiness. Matteo placed his hand on Bella's still flat stomach, and the image of the two of them, embracing on stage as the audience celebrated, became instantly iconic. Our baby will grow up knowing they were conceived in love. They will grow up with two parents who chose each other consciously. They will grow up knowing that the color of their skin is beautiful, that their family history is complex but powerful, and that true love always triumphs over hate. 3 years later, Matteo and Bella ended the night by singing a new version of the first song she had sung at El Corazón Roto. But this time the words spoke of triumph, of love found, of dreams fulfilled, not despite the difficulties, but thanks to the strength those difficulties had given them. The song was called From the Ashes, and it spoke of how true love could be born from the most difficult situations, how two broken people could heal each other, how beauty could emerge from the ashes of pain. After the concert, in the small hotel where they were staying, they had deliberately chosen a simple, local, authentic place. They stood on the terrace looking at the stars over Miami. The city skyline stretched out before them like a dream made of steel and warm lights. Bella wore a simple cotton robe, and Matteo a t-shirt and sweatpants. There were no luxuries, no staff, nothing but the two of them and the perfect night of a city that had embraced them with love. "Do you regret anything?" Bella asked, nestled in Matteo's arms, her hand instinctively resting on her belly where their daughter was growing. "Nothing," he answered without hesitation. "I lost millions of dollars in cancelled contracts. I lost friends who turned out to be opportunists. I lost the easy life I had. But I gained something priceless. I gained my soul. I gained the woman of my life. I gained the peace of living without lies. And now I'm gaining a family." "The future?" And Matteo smiled, kissing her forehead with the tenderness he had developed since learning he was going to be a father. "The future is ours. We'll make music together. We'll travel with our baby. We'll teach her that the world can be cruel, but that love is stronger. We'll grow old laughing about all the storms we managed to weather. What do you think our daughter will be like? Beautiful, like her mother. Strong, like her mother. Talented, like her mother. And I hope she has your green eyes, not my blue ones." Bella turned in his arms to look at him directly. "Matteo Cruz, your blue eyes no longer belong to the man who raped your mother. They're yours. They're the eyes that look at me with love every morning. The eyes that will look at our daughter with pride. The eyes that reflect the most beautiful soul I've ever known. But what if our daughter faces racism? What if people judge her for having famous parents? What if—" Bella silenced him with a kiss. "Then we'll teach her what life taught us, that our dignity doesn't depend on the opinions of others, that we are enough as we are, and that when you have true love at home, you can face anything. Isabella Rojas, do you know I love you more every day? Matteo Cruz, do you know my love for you is infinite?" They kissed under the Miami stars, two souls who had found their home in each other, knowing they had turned their pain into power, their scars into wisdom, and their love into a force that no amount of money could ever buy. 6 months later, they were married in a small ceremony in Bella's family's neighborhood in the Bronx. Matteo arrived without security, without luxury, just with a guitar and the love of his life. The ceremony was simple, with Bella's family, a few true friends, and music that came from the heart. Bella wore her grandmother's wedding dress, altered to accommodate her 6-month belly. Matteo wore a simple, elegant suit he had custom-made for the occasion. There were no professional photographers, only phones capturing genuine moments of happiness. The ceremony was conducted in Spanish and English. They exchanged vows they had written together, promising not only eternal love, but also mutual growth, respect for their differences, and a commitment to social justice. Their honeymoon was a road trip through the Deep South, documenting traditional blues and folk music for a cultural preservation project they were developing together. They traveled on public buses, stayed in family homes, ate at local markets, and every night Mateo sang lullabies to the baby growing in Bella's womb. 3 months later, Itzel Hope Cruz Rojas was born. She had her mother's green eyes, her father's smile, and from the moment she entered the world, she was welcomed like the princess she was. Mateo cried for 3 straight hours when he held her for the first time, whispering promises of protection, love, and justice. Bella, exhausted but radiant, after 18 hours of labor, watched Mateo with their daughter and knew she had found her purpose in life. It wasn't just to be loved, but to love. It wasn't just to be successful, but to create a legacy of love that would pass on to future generations. And so, a woman who thought she would never be truly seen, and a man who had lost his soul to success, proved that real love not only exists, but has the power to transform lives, inspire others, and create beauty in even the darkest of places. Their story became a legend, not because of the scandal or the drama, but as living proof that when 2 people love each other with truth, dignity, and mutual respect, they can overcome any obstacle and build a future more beautiful than any individual dream. Years later, when Itzel asked why her parents were famous, Bella would reply, "We're not famous for being perfect, my love. We're known because we showed that true love can change the world, one story at a time." And Mateo would add, "Your mother taught me that true success isn't how many people know your name, but how many lives you touch with love. You, my princess, are our greatest success." Love had triumphed, as it always does when it is authentic, brave, and willing to pay the price of being real. 5 years had passed like a sweet, transformative breath. The morning sun filtered through the white curtains of the colonial-style house in Coconut Grove, illuminating a scene that seemed to be straight out of a modern fairy tale. Bella, now 28, sat on the patio, surrounded by flowers she had planted herself, nursing their second child, 6-month-old Mateo Jr., while watching Mateo play with Itzel in the garden. The transformation in their lives had been so profound that sometimes Bella had to pinch herself to believe she wasn't dreaming. The woman who had arrived in Miami with $20 and a heart full of impossible dreams was now internationally recognized as one of the most powerful voices in contemporary Latin music. Her latest album, Corazón Libre, Free Heart, had won 2 Latin Grammys and was being translated into 5 languages. But more important than the awards was the impact her music was having. She received letters daily from young women, especially Black and Indigenous women, who told her how her songs had inspired them to pursue their dreams, despite social obstacles. "Mommy, look what I made!" yelled Itzel, now 5, running toward Bella with a drawing in her hands. Itzel had inherited the best of both parents: Bella's piercing green eyes, Mateo's elegant bone structure, and a personality that blended her mother's quiet strength with her father's creative passion. Her skin was a beautiful caramel tone that glowed like gold under the Florida sun, and her curly hair formed a natural crown that made people turn to look at her on the street. "Let's see, my princess," Bella said, adjusting Mateo Jr. in her arms so she could examine the drawing. The paper showed a family: a black woman with curly hair in a colorful dress, a black man with blue eyes holding a guitar, a little girl with green eyes, and a baby in the woman's arms. Above them all was a giant rainbow, and the words, "My beautiful family," written in large, colorful letters. "It's our family," Itzel explained with pride. "And look, Daddy, I put in your blue eyes because you told me they're special now, because they're yours, not someone else's." Mateo came over and knelt beside his daughter, taking the drawing with hands that trembled slightly with emotion. At 35, He had matured in ways that early success had never allowed. His temples were beginning to show a few silver hairs, but his blue eyes shone with a peace he had found only when he learned that love was more powerful than any other force in the universe. "That's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen in my life," Matteo said, hugging Itzel. "We're going to frame it and put it in the studio so everyone who comes here can see what a family that truly loves each other looks like." Thus states him. Bella watched the scene with her heart overflowing with happiness. It was hard to believe that this caring, present man was the same tormented rapper she had met in the record label's office 5 years ago. Matteo had transformed into an exceptional father, the kind who read bedtime stories every night, invented personalized songs for his children, and never missed a school performance or an important milestone in their lives. "Daddy, it's Saturday. That means we're going to the market," exclaimed Itzel, jumping with joy. It was a tradition they had established. Every Saturday, the whole family would go to the yellow-green farmers market to buy fresh ingredients for Sunday lunch. It was something Matteo had never done in his previous life of luxury and isolation, but now he considered it one of the most sacred moments of his week. "Of course, Princess, but first, let's help Mommy get little Matteo ready," Matteo replied, leaning in to kiss Bella's forehead and stroke his son's head. Matteo Jr. had inherited his father's blue eyes and his mother's skin tone, creating a stunning combination that made people stop to admire him on the streets. But more than his physical beauty, the baby radiated a serenity that spoke of the unconditional love he was being raised in. As they got ready to leave, Bella reflected on how their lives had evolved in these 5 years. The Bella Matteo Foundation, as they had decided to call it, now operated in 12 states and had helped over 500 survivors of sexual and labor abuse. What had started as a way to channel their personal pain had turned into one of the most respected organizations in its field in the country. "Did you know I got a call from a university in Barcelona yesterday?" Bella commented as she dressed Matteo Jr. "They want me to give a lecture on music and social activism." "That's amazing, love. Are you going to accept?" "Only if you come with me. I don't want to do anything without my family by my side anymore." Matteo smiled, remembering how he used to travel constantly, collecting passport stamps like trophies of his importance. Now, the idea of being away from Bella and his children for more than a week made him feel physically ill. "Then we're going to Barcelona," he said, grabbing the diaper bag. "Itzel can practice her European Spanish." The market was bustling, as it always was on Saturdays. Matteo and Bella walked among the stalls, Itzel skipping between them, holding both her parents' hands, while Matteo Jr. slept peacefully in the stroller. They were a striking family. Beautiful, obviously prosperous but unpretentious, radiating a happiness that made people smile involuntarily as they passed. "Miss Bella! Mr. Matteo!" shouted Mrs. Lupita, the flower vendor who had known them for years. "How are the babies?" That was another thing that had changed. In his previous life, Matteo was surrounded by people who treated him with artificial reverence, who addressed him as Mr. M. Saint or simply fell silent in his presence. Now he was Mr. Matteo to the market vendors, Itzel's dad to the school teachers, the musician neighbor to the people in their community. He was recognized and respected, but as a real person, not an unattainable idol. "Growing up too fast," Bella replied, stopping to buy yellow roses, Itzel's favorite. "Matteo Jr. is already trying to sit up on his own. And you, ma'am, when are we going to hear you sing at the market again?" It was a reference to an impromptu performance Bella had given 6 months earlier, when a group of local musicians had recognized her and invited her to join them. What had started as a spontaneous moment had turned into a small concert that drew hundreds of people and generated millions of online views. "Very soon, Mrs. Lupita, We're organizing a community music festival for next a month. As they continued shopping, Matteo reflected on how his relationship with fame had completely changed. In his previous life, fame was an armor he wore to protect himself from the world, but also a prison that isolated him from real connections. Now, his notoriety was a tool he used for causes greater than himself. His latest album, Nuevo Amanecer, New Dawn, had been a full collaboration with Bella. They weren't just duets. They were musical conversations where their voices intertwined. To tell stories of overcoming, love, family, and social justice, the album had debuted at #1 in 5 countries, and all proceeds were split between their foundation and local community organizations. "Daddy," said Itzel, tugging on Matteo's pants, "that lady is crying." Matteo followed his daughter's gaze and saw a young woman, clearly pregnant, sitting on a nearby bench with tears streaming down her face. Something in her posture reminded him of Bella years ago. Proud, yet desperate, strong, yet broken. "Bella," he whispered, gesturing toward the woman. Bella saw her immediately and, without hesitation, pushed Matteo Jr.'s stroller toward her. This was another profound transformation in their lives. They had learned that their own healing came from helping others find theirs. "Hi," Bella said softly, sitting beside the woman. "I'm Bella. Is everything okay?" The woman looked up, and her eyes widened when she recognized who was speaking to her. I've seen you on TV." "Yes, but right now I'm just a woman who notices when another woman is hurting. Do you want to talk?" What followed was a 20-minute conversation that changed the young woman's life. Her name was Carmen. She was 19, 6 months pregnant, and had been kicked out of her home when her conservative family discovered the baby's father was a black man. She was penniless, without support, and contemplating desperate options. When Carmen finished her story, Bella and Matteo looked at each other with the silent communication that only couples who truly know each other develop. "Carmen," Matteo said, kneeling in front of her, "our foundation has a program specifically for situations like yours. It's not charity. It's support so you can build a dignified life for yourself and your child." "I can't accept," Carmen began. "It's not about accepting," Bella interrupted. "It's about letting people who have gone through similar struggles help you find your way. I came to this city with less money than you probably have in your pocket right now. The difference is I was lucky enough to find people who believed in me." 2 hours later, Carmen was at Matteo and Bella's house, drinking tea and talking to a social worker from the foundation about housing options, medical care, and job opportunities. Itzel had instantly adopted Carmen, showing her toys and telling her stories about how her parents met. "Your parents love each other a lot," Carmen commented, watching Matteo and Bella work together in the kitchen. "Yeah," Itzel replied with the innocent wisdom of a 5-year-old. "Mommy told me that when 2 people really love each other, that love spreads to everyone around them. That's why our house is always full of people who need help." Carmen smiled for the first time in weeks. There was something about the atmosphere in that house that made her feel that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. That night, after Carmen had been settled into a temporary apartment funded by the foundation and the children were asleep, Matteo and Bella sat in their home studio working on a new song. "You know what?" Bella said, strumming her guitar. "Sometimes I wonder what our life would be like if you had taken the Montoya's money. We'd probably be living in some mansion in Miami. I'd be making soulless commercial music and you'd be, well, you wouldn't be with me. Because the Bella I love would never have stayed with someone who sold his dignity. And we wouldn't have the foundation. We wouldn't meet people like Carmen. Our children wouldn't grow up seeing that love can change the world." "Exactly." Matteo stopped playing and looked directly at her. "Bella, in these 5 years, I've learned something I never understood before. True success isn't about what you accumulate, but about what you create. And we've created a beautiful family, a community that loves us, a foundation that changes lives, and music that touches hearts. Bella stood up and walked over to him, sitting on his lap as she used to when they were dating. At 28, she was more beautiful than ever. Motherhood had softened some of her harder edges, but had also intensified her inner strength. Her body showed the marks of having given birth twice, but Matteo found her sexier and more desirable than any magazine model. "Matteo Cruz," she said, running her fingers through his slightly graying hair. "Do you know you still make me feel like a teenager in love?" "Isabella Cruz," he replied, using the last name she had taken after their marriage. "Do you know I love you more today than the day we got married?" They kissed with a passion that had never faded, but was now tempered with the security of a love tested by time and hardship. It was a kiss that tasted of promises kept, of dreams realized together, of a family built on a solid foundation of true love. "There's something I want to tell you," Bella said when they broke apart. "What is it?" "I'm thinking of writing a book, our story. Not to glorify ourselves, but to show other people that no matter how dark their situation seems, there's always hope." Matteo smiled. "I think that's an incredible idea, but you have to promise one thing." "What?" "You have to tell the whole truth, the beautiful parts and the ugly parts, the moments we almost gave up, the fights we had, the doubts we faced. Because people need to know that true love isn't a fairy tale. It's daily work, a daily choice, a daily commitment. Especially that terrible fight we had when Itzel was 2, and you thought I was being overprotective. And you thought I was being negligent." Matteo laughed. "We fought for 3 days. And then we realized we were fighting because we both loved our daughter so much we were afraid of doing something wrong. And we made love on the kitchen floor at 2 in the morning after apologizing to each other. And Itzel almost caught us the next morning." Bella laughed, remembering. This was the kind of memory Matteo cherished most now, not the moments of glory on stage or the awards he had won, but the small intimacies of a life built with real love. "Bella," he said, growing serious, "you saved my life. Not metaphorically, literally. I was dying inside, turning into something I despised, and you brought me back to life. We saved each other," she corrected him. "You gave me the chance to show my talent to the world. You defended me when no one else would. You chose love over money. And now we're raising 2 human beings who will grow up knowing they are unconditionally loved, who will see in their parents' love an example of how they should be treated by their future partners, and who will carry our story to the next generation." At that moment, as if she had sensed they were talking about her, Itzel appeared at the studio door, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Mommy, Daddy, I had a bad dream." Without hesitation, they both opened their arms, and Itzel ran to them, snuggling between them on the studio couch. It was a scene that repeated itself at least once a week, and one that Matteo knew he would miss when Itzel grew too old for it. "What was the dream about, Princess?" Bella asked, stroking her daughter's curly hair. "I dreamed that you didn't love each other anymore, and that we were going to separate like Julia's family at school." Matteo felt his heart clench. Itzel had witnessed the difficult divorce of her best friend's parents at school, and since then she occasionally expressed anxiety about the stability of her own family. "Itzel, look at me," Matteo said, turning his daughter's face so she could see his eyes. "The love between your mother and me is different from the love some people have. We choose to love each other every day. We've been through very difficult things together, and that has made us stronger. Our family is never going to break up. Promise." "I promise," Matteo said, and Bella nodded, kissing Itzel's head. "What about when you die? Will I be all alone?" It was the kind of question only a 5-year-old could ask with such devastating simplicity. Bella and Matteo looked at each other over their daughter's head. "When we're very, very old, and that happens," Bella said carefully, "you'll have your brother Matteo. You'll have a family of your own, and you'll carry all the love we've given you in your hearts. Our love will never disappear, even when we're not here physically. And you'll leave music so I can listen to you sing whenever I miss you." Itzel seemed satisfied with that answer and soon fell back asleep between her parents. Matteo and Bella stayed there, holding their daughter and reflecting on the profound responsibilities of raising human beings in a complicated world. "Sometimes I wonder if we're doing it right," Bella whispered. "If we're giving her and Matteo the tools they'll need to navigate the world. We're giving them the most important thing." Matteo replied, "Unconditional love, examples of strength and dignity, and the certainty that they are valuable not for what they do, but for who they are." When they finally carried Itzel back to her bed, Matteo and Bella realized it was almost midnight. They had a performance the next day at a music festival in Miami. But instead of the pre-show anxiety Matteo used to feel in his previous life, he felt only excitement for the opportunity to share his music with people who truly appreciated it. "Remember the last time we performed at this festival?" Bella asked as they got ready for bed. 3 years ago. Itzel was 2, and you were pregnant with Matteo, but we didn't know it yet. And you stopped in the middle of the performance to give me water because you thought I was feeling sick. And, the crowd went, "Oh," so loud it almost broke the speakers. "Tomorrow will be different. We'll be there as a complete family, showing the world that it's possible to have professional success without sacrificing what truly matters." "You know what I'm most proud of," Matteo said, turning off the light. "It's not the awards we've won or the money we've raised for the foundation. It's that when our children grow up and tell their parents' story, they'll be able to say that we chose love, that we fought for justice, and that we used our talents to make the world a better place. And that they never, not for a second, doubted that they were loved." Exactly. In the darkness of the room, Bella snuggled against Matteo as she had done thousands of times over the past 5 years. Her body fit into his like 2 puzzle pieces designed for each other. "Matteo? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For choosing me, for choosing us, for proving that fairy tales can love." Matteo kissed her on the forehead, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair that still made him feel like he was home, no matter where they were. "Thank you, Bella, for saving me from myself, for teaching me that real success is measured in love, not money, for giving me the most beautiful family in the world." And so, 5 years after they met in a corporate office, Matteo and Bella fell asleep knowing they had built something rare and precious, a life based on true love, integrity, and the daily commitment to choose each other above all else. In the room next door, Itzel dreamed of rainbows and music, while Matteo Jr. slept peacefully, surrounded by the love his parents had created, a love that would continue to expand like ripples on a lake, touching lives they had yet to even meet. Love had triumphed, not just once, but every single day, in every small and large choice they made together. And it would continue to triumph, generation after generation, because true love doesn't die, it multiplies. What an incredible journey. This story reminds us that true love isn't a destination, but a daily journey of conscious choices. 5 years later, Matteo and Bella have proven that when love is authentic and based on solid values, it not only survives, but flourishes into a legacy that changes the world. Thank you so much for watching. We pour our hearts into these stories, and your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. We'd love to know what part of the story touched you the most, what city you're from, and any ideas you have for future tales. See you next time.